A protein bar can shout zero sugar, list 20 grams of carbohydrate, and still taste like a brownie. Is the trick just sugar alcohols? And should a person read that as genuinely lower impact or clever label magic? I am especially confused by packages that say keto, diabetic friendly, or only 2 net carbs because the back label can look much less magical than the front.
The first correction is the name. Sugar alcohols are polyols, molecules that resemble sugars but are handled differently by the intestine and metabolism. They are not ethanol, and they do not make a candy bar alcoholic. They show up in gum, mints, diabetic candies, keto snacks, cough drops, and some baked goods because they add both sweetness and physical bulk, unlike high-intensity sweeteners that need fillers. The body ladder starts in the small intestine. Erythritol is mostly absorbed early, circulates briefly, and is largely excreted unchanged in urine, so it contributes very little energy. Xylitol is partly absorbed and metabolized. Sorbitol and maltitol leave more material for slower absorption or colon fermentation. That is why the same sweet taste can have different calories, different glucose effects, and a very different afternoon for your gut. That gives the practical headline. Compared with table sugar at about 4 calories per gram, most sugar alcohols are lower, but not all are essentially calorie-free. Erythritol is the outlier near zero. Xylitol, sorbitol, and maltitol still carry meaningful energy, just less than sucrose. So the benefit is substitution, not unlimited dessert counting. If the serving doubles because the label sounds safe, the calorie advantage can quietly disappear.
If someone has diabetes, prediabetes, or just tracks glucose, is erythritol automatically the safest pick? And where do maltitol brownies fit? Because people online seem to subtract every sugar alcohol gram as if none of it counts. I want the glucose answer, but also the real-life answer. Does the brownie's flour, fat, and portion size change the story?
That subtraction rule is the trap. The FDA label gives total carbohydrate, fiber, sugars, added sugars, and sometimes sugar alcohols, but net carbs is not a standardized federal line. If a product has mostly erythritol, subtracting it may roughly match its low energy and low glucose effect. If it has maltitol or sorbitol, subtracting every gram can undercount both calories and possible glucose impact. For medication decisions, the front-of-pack math is not a dosing tool.
So when people say sugar alcohols ruin their stomach, is that an allergy-like danger signal, or more like a dose problem from sending too much poorly absorbed carbohydrate to the colon at once? I ask because the stories sound dramatic, but the pattern often seems like someone ate a whole bag of sugar-free candy, not one mint.
Mostly dose and chemistry. Unabsorbed polyols hold water in the intestine. Then colonic microbes ferment some of what arrives. That can produce gas and looser stool. Erythritol tends to cause less fermentation because more is absorbed and excreted unchanged. Sorbitol and maltitol are more likely to become a bowel event when the serving grows or when several products stack together. Tolerance is personal, so the same label can be fine for one person and miserable for another.
The one claim that sounds less like diet marketing is dental health, especially xylitol gum. Is that because xylitol kills bacteria, or simply because chewing sugar-free gum stops feeding acid-producing plaque? And should people think of this as a small oral health tool, not a replacement for brushing, fluoride toothpaste, and regular dental care?
Dental is a more plausible benefit than appetite magic. For satiety and cravings, the evidence is thinner. In a small randomized crossover study of 20 healthy adults, beverages paired with erythritol, sucrose, or sucralose became similarly liked after conditioning. Erythritol may stimulate some gut hormones, but that did not translate into a distinct reward response in that experiment. So it may reduce sugar exposure without automatically quieting the desire for sweetness. The cautious groups are practical, not exotic. People with irritable bowel patterns, chronic diarrhea, or a low FODMAP plan may tolerate sorbitol or maltitol poorly. People adjusting diabetes medication should not treat candy labels as dosing tools. And xylitol is dangerously toxic to dogs, so gum, Mints and baking products need pet-safe storage. Pregnancy, chronic digestive disease, or unexplained weight loss also moves this from label hacking to individualized advice. Best fit is someone replacing a usual sugary item with a smaller or similar portion, especially gum, mints, or an occasional dessert where the ingredient list is clear. The benefit shrinks if the food becomes a permission slip to eat twice as much. It also shrinks when the product is still rich in refined starch, saturated fat, or calories from other ingredients. In other words, a polyol can improve a snack without turning it into a vegetable.
If I am standing in the store, what is the fastest read? Do I start with total carbs, the ingredient list, calories, or the sugar alcohol grams? Because the shopper problem is not writing a dissertation in the aisle. It is deciding whether one bar is a reasonable swap, a gut gamble, or just expensive candy with better branding.
Use a 4-step scan. 1. Compare serving size and calories to the food it replaces. 2. Check total carbohydrate because that is the regulated anchor. 3. Find the actual polyol name. Erythritol predicts the lowest glucose and calorie impact. Maltitol and sorbitol deserve more caution. 4. Ask whether you would still buy it if the front label disappeared. That last question cuts through a lot of halo language.
What would make you stop experimenting and ask a clinician instead? Is it just severe diarrhea, or also confusing glucose readings after products that were supposed to be low impact? I would want people to know the difference between normal trial and error with a sweetener and a pattern that should not be managed by buying yet another snack with a different claim.
Exactly. The useful middle is this. Sugar alcohols can lower added sugar, calories, and post-meal glucose exposure when they replace sugar in sensible portions. Erythritol is usually the lowest impact common option. Xylitol has a dental niche. Sorbitol and maltitol are more likely to challenge the gut and label math. The win is not purity. It is a better swap that your body actually tolerates, your glucose data does not contradict, and your pet cannot accidentally reach.